Welcome to the Black Madonna Codes, a weekly conversation for women leaders who know the sacred feminine cannot be contained, sanitized, or erased.
Through honest conversation about how the Magdalene principles are woven through history, race, spirituality, and current lived experience, we're widening the story and honoring the many cultures that have carried this wisdom.
We're inviting you to open your heart with us as we explore the Magdalene path with curiosity, humility, and reverence for the lineages we carry. Hey everyone, we're dropping in today with the initial question, why is it so hard to talk about race and spirituality in the same container? Why does that seem to be a universal struggle that we have? And we're going to speak to that throughout this episode. But before we do, I just want to speak into a little introduction. I'm Melissa Keenan, and this is Deidre Towns. This is our Black Madonna Codes. We're in episode 2, and you can find us here every Tuesday. The intention is to go live at 10:30 a.m. Pacific time, but we make it as close as we can. We really want to create honest, inclusive, and historically aware conversations around Mary Magdalene, the Black Madonna, and the sacred feminine. And we're doing that by widening the narrative to include race, lineage, and lived experience. Like, we both relate to Mary Magdalene as someone who is extremely relatable for like women and women's empowerment today. And we wanted to bring these conversations specifically weaving in race and lineage. And so we're coming in today. We're not doing this perfect. We're not doing this to bring anybody shame. That's not what this is about. We're here to be honest, to be open and curious. I am actively learning live in front of you, basically, in all the things I'm doing right now. But yeah, we're dropping in today. Deidre, do you want to start us off talking about like this? Why does it seem to be so hard?
Why does it seem to be so hard? This is a good question. I kind of, as you were talking, doing the intro, I was thinking, before it even gets hard, why does it even matter? You know, if you come from the understanding that in spirit there's no color, right? In spirit, your spiritual essence doesn't have a race attached to it. Only your body has a race attached to it. And so I can hear the voices saying, you know, the voices of people who would say, like, I don't see color, or race doesn't matter, or things like that. And I think
we're all one.
Yes. Which this is true in the realm of spirit. We are all one. But in the world of the material where we live and eat and see each other and have experiences, we have to deal with the constructs, right? Time is a construct. Time is not a real thing. It's a construct that we've made to help us organize our day and our lives and work and things like that. And money is a construct, right? We made it up. And race is a construct also. But just because something is a construct doesn't mean that it's not impactful. It doesn't mean that it's not something that you have to deal with and interact with and work around on this material plane. And so I think that's why being able to talk about race in the context of spirituality, and it comes up because there's a saying of the people who win the war get to write history. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. So the people who have written history have often left out. The Romans won a lot of wars, right? They won a lot of wars. They expanded their empire, and they absorbed other cultures and other people because they wanted, like, can we all just get along? So you've got to include some of those people's culture now. So their culture expanded regionally. And so when we look at the Bible and our spiritual practice and the stories and where those stories came from, you kind of can't do that in an honest way without considering those other cultures
Mm-hmm.
that influence the way the Romans wrote about wrote the stories. Like who wrote the stories eventually,
Stories. Yep.
right? And so that's why it matters to talk about race, to talk about culture, to talk about contribution, because many of those voices were silenced. And so we want to honor those voices, and we want to honor, we want to be aware of the distinction between the popular dominant narrative about things. And I mean, we weren't there, so we can't say this is what happened, but what more likely happened that diverges from the dominant narrative. And so
Yeah.
that's why it's important.
I love that. I mean, and we see the same thing happening today. Like I keep going back to this thought about um how our history books are written. And the history that I was taught in school is so different than the actual history that happened when it comes to Black people and even the indigenous, and the prevalence of racism that still exists today, and the prevalence of the systemic racism that still exists today. Like, I was brainwashed, so that's why I didn't think racism was still a problem in America. Like, that is a deliberate systemic thing that was infiltrated into our school system. And so I think it's really pertinent to what you were just saying. Like, who wrote the story? It's like, well, it's uncomfortable. So white people wrote it and they didn't include the whole truth.
Right.
And that's
But
uncomfortable.
also it doesn't impact you either,
Yeah.
right? So it's very easy to be like, oh, it doesn't exist anymore, because you're not going to run into any of those kinds of barriers.
Yep.
And if your awareness is not to, you're not going to notice it when other people are running into those barriers.
Yep. Exactly. This is the
And so,
piece I keep trying to sort of seed in for white women, especially who are deep in this spiritual work and spiritual places. Like, it's so beautiful that you have found the oneness that matters. That is so great. But it's very convenient and easy not to see color, not to see race, and not to see the effects that it has created as a white woman, because you're not faced with it every day. Whereas someone like yourself, it's like, well, it was never an option to not see race, or not. It's like, I get to be faced with microaggressions and all the systemic stuff and the struggle and all of this every day. And not to mention the ancestral, if we're talking in spiritual spaces, the ancestral healing and stuff that gets to happen in your body is different, and it matters. Like, we have to be able to bring both of these worlds, the oneness and race, into the same conversation. That's what we're creating today. But
right.
I'll say, oh, Jeff, do you want to say something about that?
I just want to say, it doesn't have to, it's not about race.
Yeah.
It is being willing to see things a different way.
Mm-hmm.
That's really what we're talking about. It's not like, you don't have to believe exactly as I believe, but are you willing to see another perspective?
Yeah.
And there are many perspectives.
It's really about story.
It
In
really is about
my
story.
experience, it's like, I mean, every story that I hear right now in this space of deconstruction, in this space of really trying to see beyond the brainwashing that I received as a kid, I am changed. Like it deeply moves my soul, and I'm in the work of stories. So I get that. Like, but I don't know that we all get that. The listening to stories is a spiritual practice.
Yes. Yeah. And that is like, even in my own spiritual practice, right? There's a something might happen, and part of the work that I do and part of the work that I teach is about, there's what happened, and then there's your story about what happened, right? So generally, when if you're at the point of taking something personally, that's probably rooted in a story that you have about what happened, as opposed to what happened. This person stepped on my foot, that's what happened. This person stepped on my foot because they are ignoring me or they didn't see me. That's the story part of what happened.
Mhm.
And if you can change the story that you're telling yourself about what happened, it can change everything. It can change the way you feel. It can change the way you respond to that person. It can be the difference between finding compassion and dropping into anger or upset. And
Yeah.
so that really makes it in the micro, right? In our own personal lives, the way story shows
Mm.
up, the way we tell stories. And I don't think people realize that we're telling stories all day, every day. You're
All day.
telling yourself stories all day, every day. I have a friend that says choice, not chance, determines your destiny. And
Mm-hmm.
for me, the biggest choice is, what story are you telling? What story are you telling yourself?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Are you telling yourself a story that you're empowered, or are you telling yourself a story that disempowers you?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes, to circle back to the conversation about race, when when things get whitewashed and it voices are suppressed or discounted, then it's people feel people will feel then disconnected, and then they can also make up a story about that. Like, why is that happening? Why am I not being acknowledged? Or why are the contributions of this group of people not acknowledged, but this group is?
Mm-hmm.
And it's a conversation that gets to happen, and life happens in a conversation. So
I like too what you said about, when things get whitewashed, it made me think, when that's the only story that we have, like my upbringing that I brought up at the beginning, when I have just the whitewashed story, I only have a part of the story. And so, what does it do for someone to get to, remove some of that whitewashing and get to hear a broader perspective of the whole story? Um, this is not like, I feel like this is not a conversation about politics. This is not like what you're going to hear on a news channel. What we're talking about is expanding our hearts to, like, humans, your next door neighbor who's Hispanic, and they're freaking shaking in their bones right now, worried that their Uncle Joe's going to get picked up by ICE. Like, we're talking about real humans and opening our hearts to those things. And we're also talking about it in the context of lineage and spiritual tradition. I want to just speak to, like, the vulnerability for me of holding these conversations. Like, after we finished our episode last week, I noticed all kinds of just like, well, actually, this whole time I'm holding all of these conversations, because Magdalene interview series is very much, we're having these conversations as well. It's like, who do you think you are? Um, oh, look at Melissa's drinking the Kool-Aid now. Like, I'm hearing voices from my ancestors who were very racist. Like, I have all these voices popping in, and also even like the narrative from people of color, like, what makes you think we need you? Why are you coming into this space, and who do you think you are, being an educator or something? Like, and just so many voices. So I think that's another piece that sort of speaks to, like, why is it hard? As a white woman, I'm like, yeah, I'm holding all kinds of stuff. um it's worth it for me because of the way my heart is expanding, and because of what it's allowing me to create, you know, creating communities in a world that is more integrated and beautiful and whole and rooted in love than I had been experiencing previously. But it's not comfortable. So yeah, I feel like it's important to name that. Even saying that, I'm like, oh, am I allowed to say that?
Yeah, you're totally allowed to say that because that's what's there, right? Like, but that's where the juice is, right? Doing it uncomfortable, doing it scared, excuse me, doing it, learning how to be comfortable or get comfortable with uncomfortability.
Yeah.
And that's how we get to grow too, right? So, I mean, I love that you're willing to take that on. I love that you're willing to take yourself on. So, having that stuff come up, and then how do you manage that when it comes up?
It's I'm really still in practice with that right now. It's like almost like a new flavor of trauma that I get to like learn how to work with myself in it. Um Sometimes I just crash the fuck out. Like sometimes there's not another option. Last night was one of those moments, and I just kind of, the more that I've been doing this work and in these conversations, the more that I've been seeing microaggressions. And I had an opportunity this weekend to work in a super public facing setting, probably served a couple hundred customers, because with the nonprofit that I'm a part of, we work at the baseball stadium. And so I just got to see people, just lots of people, interactions among crowds of people. And not everything was even bad that was happening, but I suddenly am seeing stuff that I hadn't seen before.
Mhm.
And I had several moments during the day of like, and I could feel tears welling up in my eyes, and I just needed to like ground in and do some breathing. And I just, thankfully, like I've done enough work to be very aware of my own like kind of inner dialogues and emotions. So I was able to be like, oh, okay, I see this. I see what this is. I am actively deconstructing from, white privilege, white supremacy, all of this stuff. This is emotional, and that's what this is. And getting it a little bit outside of me helped me to just breathe and continue to move through the thing I was doing. But yeah, it's
I love that. I love that. Not getting, it's so funny. So in the 23rd Psalms, it says, "Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death," right? But you're walking. Don't stop. Don't sit down. Don't build a house there.
I love that.
Right? When stuff is hard, keep going. Yo, one of my favorite people is Dory from Finding Nemo. Just keep swimming. Just
Yeah.
keep swimming. Sometimes that's all you got. Just keep swimming.
It's so true. It's
So
so true.
yeah, it's like to be unstoppable,
Yeah.
really. And it's not about being stopped by things outside of you. It's by stopping yourself, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's so
Well, and
good. That's so rich. Hmm.
thank you. I want to weave in let's weave back in Mary Magdalene, Black Madonna. Where are we going with all of this? I think that the perfect segue is to talk about The Secret Life of Bees. Such a good
Yep.
movie.
Got it.
Finally watched it this weekend for the first time, and was like, what the heck? Could there have been a more perfect movie that speaks to exactly what we're doing on this interview series on the Black Madonna Codes? Because if you haven't seen The Secret Life of Bees, so good. And there's bees, which anybody who knows me and been following me for a while knows that I'm a beekeeper. I believe I'm a bee priestess from the Melissae, Grecian lineage. Like, bees. I love bees, and I believe bees are super spiritual as well. Also, this movie has Black Madonna in it, this gorgeous statue, which they relate to as Mother Mary. And if you've been listening to our conversation that, or know anything about Black Madonna, there's legend about it being Mother Mary, legend about it being Mary Magdalene herself, and legend about it being Sarah or Sarah Lacali, potentially the daughter of Mary Magdalene and Jesus. So there's legends kind of surrounding all of that, right? So in this movie, they're relating to her as Mother Mary, but they're relating to the fact that she was a refugee, that she understood what it was like to go on a ship to a foreign land and to show up and choose to live and choose to be in her power no matter what her circumstances were. And that this group of Black women found, and they had a kind of lineage that they spoke about as well, got this statue and would use that to relate to their struggles and their ancestry, who also came across on a ship and to dire circumstances and chose to live. Oh my God, it was so beautiful. And they had this practice where they'd go around and touch the heart to access courage again, to reactivate their courage. So this movie, I was like, no way.
It's such a good movie. It's such a good movie.
Recommended by Deidre, of course.
Highly recommend. I highly recommend the movie. It's funny, right? Because even in the movie, they're talking politics, right? Because the movie is set in a time when registering to vote was a problem, which we talked about voting last time on when we had this conversation. And so and how all those things get woven together in the life that we're living and into our everyday. Like, where do you find your courage when you are? One of my favorite lines, it has been like a North Star for me. The poem Desiderata by Max Ehrman, I think is his name. And the line in the poem is, nurture strength of spirit to shield you in sudden misfortune. And so I think I stumbled into this poem. My aunt had the poem hanging in her bathroom. I was staying with my aunt for the summer. I read the poem every day, several times a day, every time I went to the bathroom. So, um, so, but that line really impressed upon me the importance of your spiritual development, of cultivating. It even informed me that that was a thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's worthwhile to put your time and your talent and your energy into nurturing strength of spirit. And when I read it, I would think I was probably 19. And I'm sure I didn't even know what that meant. Like, what does that even look like? How do you nurture a spirit? Right. But from the movie, part of the way they connected to that part of themselves was the statue reminded them. It's like a reminder that someone else has walked this path. Someone else has faced these challenges and they have overcome and they persisted and they flourished. And so that's a really, to me, an interesting thing to look at, because as you know, all of the disciples were persecuted, right? And so where do you find that courage? Where do you find that within you, the thing within you that makes you keep going in spite of the challenges and the obstacles that you're going to confront, and you don't even know what they are yet. You don't even know how it's going to show up.
Yeah.
And how do you keep putting one foot in front of the other? And I think that that's a really beautiful part of the Magdalene legacy. And to speak to what you were just saying about the different stories about Magdalene, like, is it Mary, Mother Mary? Is it Mary Magdalene? Is it Sarah? For me, it's more, I put my focus on the Magdalene principles. There are some principles that go along with the Magdalene, almost like if you study astrology, if there are principles that go along with being a Taurus, there's principles that go along with this planet. This planet represents this, and that. And so what does this icon of Mary Magdalene represent? And how do you connect to that to your own life and your own experience. And I think that's part of what these conversations are about. And that's definitely what going to France to walk in her footsteps and go to these places where people built shrines to honor her and her sacrifice and her commitment and the things that she did. And I think that's really, really valuable. Anyone who's done a pilgrimage would know. Like if you've done what is it, in Spain they have the Camino de Santiago,
Right.
right, in Spain, where any type of pilgrimage, it changes you.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah, I love that. I think we forgot to say at the beginning we're doing this because we're also leading a Magdalene pleasure pilgrimage, but we are. We'd
we
love for you
are.
to come. Yeah, we've been deep in the planning of that, and as we've been having these conversations, we thought we ought to have these conversations live. I think that we need to be sharing with others in these conversations, and and I think when you talk about Magdalene principles, it's tough because I think it's different for everybody what Magdalene really represents. But one of the primary things that has come through for me again and again is that she is a carrier of lineages. She was living at a crossroads of, African, Mediterranean, descent, Middle Eastern. She's carrying all of these traditions in ways that we don't fully have historical understanding for. Um, and the fact that we even don't fully know what her lineage was, that there's debate whether she was Black from Egyptian, African descent or Middle Eastern, or
Mhm.
some people also think she was white with red hair. And so I think that we can't truly do justice to the Magdalene without talking about race and lineage and right relation and how are we being with all these things, even though it was really different for her back then. uh, I think how we all relate today, we've got the internet and we've got all this access, and now we do have greater levels of freedom than we ever have, especially in America. That we have access to more spiritual traditions than we ever have. And so, how do we be with that? How do we hold those things? Is really important, and more than anything, how do we just be with people in their stories? So I keep having this vision with the pilgrimage that several women leaders are going to be there. We have space for 14 to come, are going to sit together in a circle and are going to come from such different backgrounds and have different beliefs and have the capacity and the agreements and container to celebrate each other in that and not
Mhm.
feel threatened by difference and not feel, that each of us can go, be replenished, have our perspectives expanded by one another. Oh, who doesn't want that? And then go out and do even bigger things in the world. Like, this is a powerful uniting of women leaders. So that's what we're trying to create, and I think we need to just create more spaces like that on the planet in general, and that's why this conversation exists.
Yes, that part. All of the things.
Yeah. um well, we took this in a couple different directions. We had some
We
notes.
did.
We came in some different directions, but I've really loved this conversation, and probably time for us to wrap it up for today. I like literally was like every day, like wake up and like, oh, it's still several days away. I love these conversations so much, Deidre.
Me too.
Um, I think if we were to wrap this up, I'd love for both of us to drop into that original question, like, why is it so hard? And to have conversations where race and spirituality are spoken in the same container, and then moving beyond that question. And I'd love, even if you're watching this, whether you're live or on the replay, to ask yourself this question too, like, what is one principle or action step or piece that would be helpful in this pursuit of more people being able to hold it in their hearts and hold it in their communities, hold both the oneness and the lived experience of all the people.
Yes.
Yeah. So you want to start us off, Deidre? What do you got?
Uh, I've lost the question. You just went in so deep. I'm like,
What's like one piece
one piece.
speak
Oh,
to
to me, one piece is for me perspective, right?
Mm,
So can you hold conflicting perspectives about a thing?
yeah.
Can you do that? Can you build your capacity to do that? I'm going to ask for forgiveness from all the people who love cats, but my mother used to say there's more than one way to skin a cat, right? And so it's like, yeah, I was raised in this environment where there's always another way to get something done. If this doesn't work, then you go around and you find this other thing. And so are you willing to be open? Are you willing to entertain the idea that there is another perspective? And I want to qualify this actually, because I feel like we're back into the conversation about race, that sometimes in conversations about race, you will have people bring up tolerance, that you have to be tolerant of everyone, right? And
Mhm.
so I want to introduce, or to put in the space here that we're cultivating, the paradox of tolerance, right? Entertaining other perspectives doesn't mean entertaining a perspective that doesn't acknowledge your humanity. That's not what I'm referring to. So while there is space for tolerance, and so let me start with the paradox of tolerance is, if you are tolerant of intolerance, the intolerance will take over.
Mm,
So you need tolerance, but you need it like the way you see the yin yang symbol,
mm,
that there's a piece of one inside the other. So
yeah.
you have to hold, there has to be a boundary. It can't be unlimited tolerance, because if you're tolerant of the intolerant, the tolerance will be subsumed, and you don't want that. So you have to hold a boundary there. So yes, I am saying my one thing is about being able to hold different perspectives, being able to hear different perspectives. And the caveat to that is not in a way that diminishes your humanity. We're
Mm,
not holding perspectives that diminishes the humanity of other people, because that's not a perspective, that's something else.
mm. Ooh, that was big and deep and beautiful. Thank you, Deidre. I feel like there's pieces there for me to like explore and look at. I loved that. I think that I think for me, I'll circle back to the movie, like touch the heart, find the courage. And I have a little story that goes with that, which is that I had sat with the cognitive dissonance. This will be a whole nother episode, I think. I sat with the cognitive dissonance of like seeing things different than the narrative I was given when it came to people of color in America my whole life. But I watched people just gloss it over. And during 2020, I started listening a lot more and I started paying more attention and I started having some ahas of like, oh my God, I never thought about that. Like, oh my God, the 4th of July. Oh God, that wasn't a day of freedom for all Americans. Like, wow, just having some ahas. And I actually made a post about that just because I was like, I'm seeing this and I'm thinking about this, and I got some backlash. And I watched several white women running huge businesses get canceled. There was a lot of canceling going on at that time. And I got scared and I got paralyzed. And I didn't notice it until 5 years later.
Wow.
5 years I was paralyzed. I thought, oh, I've just moved on to other things. I didn't realize that I was literally like scratching with a toothpick the very toppy top of this iceberg. I was just like, okay, and in hindsight, I got really scared and I got paralyzed. And I think certain things like the universe kind of knows also, our path and our journey. And I wrestled with feeling behind in this, but I also trust that like I'm right where I'm meant to be and hold that paradox. But it is courage. It is this heart. I look back and I'm like, would my heart have been able to, like, I think I have had to let my heart crack open and crack open and crack open in so many ways to get to the place where I could start weaving, things into my business. That I'm running a publishing company and I get to center BIPOC voices and voices of people from historically marginalized backgrounds. And I get to like be in these conversations. Like, I don't know that I could have done all of this 5 years ago. But my encouragement is like, touch the heart, find the courage. How do we find that courage? And how do we really hold our heart through? Because these conversations matter. And it matters not just for white women to do the work. Like when it comes to spiritual lineage and how we're being with spiritual lineage, that's a conversation for everybody to be having. Because we're all walking around borrowing, if you got a crystal in your backyard, where does that come from? Like, I don't know. I'm
Right.
still learning. Like you got,
Right.
you've
There's
got
a
to,
lot to learn. There's a lot
yeah.
to learn. And there's also a lot of common threads
Yes,
too.
there's a lot of common threads. Yeah,
Hmm.
exactly. Which is so beautiful. And also like a perfect ripe garden for lots of appropriation and extraction. So we need to be present to that
We need to
and,
be present.
and do stand
100%.
correctly. Yeah. Yeah. Well, Deidre, thank you for this conversation today. Again, those of you in the comments, we'd love to hear your thoughts. We'd love to hear, what steps are you taking to be in the conversation around spirituality and race. We'd love to hear, even if you disagree with something we said today. We're super open, both of us, to learning and seeing additional perspectives. Certainly, we invite you to be respectful, and this isn't like a big debate space, but we're here and we're real and we're in these conversations, and we're also really leading a group of women to the south of France, and cultivating that has been such a joy, and we are going to have so much fun. And I recently, the kind of term has been coming in my head, like wholly irreverent. Like that's how I see this. There's going to be so much laughter and so much like not behaving manners and things, because we all have different morals, and it's going to be so fun. So we hope you'll look into that. We've got the link in the description today, and we hope you'll join us again. We'll do better to be on time at 10:30 a.m. Pacific time next Tuesday for episode 3 of the Black Madonna Codes. And if you have a story or relationship with Black Madonna or with the Magdalene, or you have things you want to share inside of this conversation, I'm also running the Magdalene interview series, and I'd love to have you on the show. So just send me a DM. Any final things you want to say, Deidre?
No, you covered everything.
Lovely. All right. Bye for
All
now.
right. Bye.